right, what's up? We're back. Another Wheel Wednesday, Behind the Wheel podcast. Me here with Scott, and we're also with someone who's been in the Koenig family for quite a while. We're here joined with M-Spec Performance, Mr. Kasey Kohl. Kasey, what's up, man?
What's up, guys? How's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Sweet.
I'm good. A little chilly. I didn't expect to be this chilly in Oklahoma, but a little chilly. Other than that, we're good. We're busy. We're working. We're building cars for next year, man. Or this year now. Jeez.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I think it's such an interesting piece for us to kind of get into some of the aspects. Like we have a relationship with you guys. We watch you guys, you run the cars and stuff like that, and to kind of bring people behind the looks kind of feel of what it's like to kind of build a new chassis and kind of have to come to that point where we got to refresh things.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We're, my car's great. We did 2 seasons on it now. Obviously, it needs a little refresh. I, blew up the clutch, the trans needs gone through, those kinds of things. So those are kind of like our normal, like every off season, we just, we'll tear the car. I'd say we tear the car like halfway down, and refresh, go through everything. But every now and then, Dan's chassis, where this last year was year 5. It's time for a new chassis. So now it's, instead of it just being a normal tear down, refresh, go about it winter, it is a full brand new build, and it's kind of all hands on deck all times until it's done type thing.
Is there like a set I don't want to say expiration date, because that's like, we know that's not the case, but like, what are the signs and pieces that you get to, especially on a pro car, where you start to say, you know what, it's time?
Specifically Dan's car, so S chassis front subframes are like notoriously weak. It's just what they are. And then we mod them. So we cut them up, we chop them, we, put rack forward sections in them, all kinds of weird stuff, which I actually, anybody that checks the FD rule book, we actually developed a front brace for the front subframes because we went through like 4 of them last year. So we developed a brace, and Kevin, the technical director at FD, actually approved it. So it's in the rule book this year that you can get a brace from us at M-Spec.
That's sick.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's super dope. We kind of like, we've actually, I think this is our 3rd rule in the rule book now that M-Spec directly has had their hands in.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's nice to kind of feel like you're progressing the sport. But those subframes are so weak. So we decided we need this brace to help us not kill these things. But they're still you're still gonna kill them eventually. But Dan's car specifically, like, I can see little things, like when he like pulls it out of the trailer and he's got like the car doesn't have any slip in it. It's got 285s on it, 255s up, and he rolls the wheel all the right way around and starts to drive forward, and you see the wheel shudder in the wheel well, because it's putting so much stress into that front subframe, and the chassis itself is like, Dan's car's been in the wall at Irwindale and New Jersey and Seattle, and in Long Beach, and so you can just, like, I can physically see his chassis moving around, and there's only so much strengthening that I can do that still falls inside the rule book. We can't do strut tower to like firewall or tying into the front cage, into the main cage or anything like that. So there's only so much we can do. And when we start kind of seeing the chassis move around and flex, when we notice that like suspension links, to get the alignment correct, one side's got a ½ inch extra threads compared to the other side, those kind of, we start noticing, hey, the chassis is moving around. You can see like, oh look, we ripped a couple of these spot welds here. Obviously there's some tension that's been put into this, so there's just all these little things that kind of you unbolt the seat and you go to bolt the seat back in, and it doesn't line up exactly how it should. Like, those little kinds of things just let you know, hey, things are moving, chassis is not exactly what it used to be. His cars, I think in the last 2 years, his car was on the frame rack like 4 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we know how many times it's been pulled and how far it's been pulled and how far it goes the next impact. And so, you just kind of see this trend and you go, okay, this is you're being limited by the car now. I can physically see you being limited by the car. It's time to do something about it. So
yeah. Now, going back 5 years, are there anything that you're consciously doing this round of building a car that maybe you didn't do last time, or you've had some learning curves that came from, running all those seasons, and now you're like, no, I know we're doing this differently because?
100%. So like it's kind of funny. This car that's in the air right here.
Yeah.
This one. This is my S13. I've had that since 2010.
Okay.
And so this is this. I learned to drive in this. I learned to build cars because of this. Like, this was really like that car that did most of this for me. And we decided, hey, we're gonna refresh this thing. We're kind of mentoring a 13-year-old, and he's gonna be taking this. Yeah, he's gonna be taking this to Pro-Am next year.
Wow.
He's absolutely shredder, dude. It blows my mind. He's been like driving for like 8 months, and he just is insanity. He was doing like 100-mile-an-hour entries with us out at Texas.
Wait, Kasey. So is he? When you say 8 months, is this a? All right, because I have two questions, and then we'll go back to the topic, right? But like, is this one of those things where in that 8 months he's physically been driving, or is this in 8 months like he started on a sim kind of thing? Like how do we get here?
His family has like always been like super into like side-by-sides, off-road, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So he's got a Can-Am that he rips through. Like, we have a place called Little Sahara that's like I don't know, it's something crazy. It's like 17,000 acres, and it's like 100-foot sand dunes here in Oklahoma. And so we can go out there and rip the sand dunes, and they got trails and stuff like that. So he's like capable behind the wheel, but he'd never driven he'd never driven a stick shift. So he learned how to drive stick about 8 months ago.
Okay.
Maybe 9 months. And he had never drifted a car, never been in a drift car, never done anything like that. So besides the side-by-sides, never done any type of driving. And then 8 months ago, learned how to drive stick. They actually came down here. He was like, I want to drift. We met his family, all that, kind of got him into it. They went and picked up a simulator. We kind of gave them recommendations on that kind of stuff. He got a sim. So he's at home driving a sim. Then he gets out and he's driving, like, he's in the car like every other weekend, like if not every weekend. Like, it's the family went all in. They've already got 2 drift cars. They bring them both to both events. If he breaks one, dad's fixing the one, he's in the other, still on track. Like, he gets way more seat time than me and Dan, which is crazy. But he's like a shredder, man. Like, he picks it up so quick, and like I'll be in the car with him and like tell him something, and I'll be like, hey, we went into that first corner, and I saw you kind of float through it and then pick up the throttle. Well, if you grab the handbrake, as we're leaving the apex, it'll shoot you outside, and you can pick up the throttle earlier and drive in. And he'll be like, oh, okay. And then we'll go the next lap, and he'll do it.
Wow.
And I'm like, goodness. And then I'll be like, okay, you did that, but now on turn 3, you this and this and this. And we'll go back out. He'll still do what we needed to do on turn 1, fix what he needs to do in turn 3. And we'll do that for like 4 or 5 laps in a row. And he will pick up, change, and retain every single lap, which is like, that's crazy. Like, wow. It's insane. Just like there's about it. It just clicks with him. Like, he could do 360s better than I can. Like, he's already leaving door marks on people and tandem, like close proximity tandeming, and like, like tandeming around erratic drivers, and like managing the car, and like realizing when they're going to load up. And he's good. Like, he's good. He's going to do Pro-Am next year. And, of course we'd love for him to win, but we'd like manage our expectations and manage reality. Like, there's only so much you can do, and so much you're in control of, and don't be upset about things. And the longevity side of things, and all the tough fun battles that we had to learn to be comfortable in this sport where you get told that you suck all the time.
Yeah.
If you're not winning, you lose. So right. But just helping him through all that, and he's just a crusher. So we're building him a car, like my old car. Dan got his license in that car, I got my license in that car. Now we're hoping he gets car. So but yeah, so back kind of to that, like I kind of learned how to build cars because of that car. And since then I've built I think 5 or 6 now bottom up drift cars, like full down to bare metal. But that kind of led into the next car, which was built for a customer. Learned a bunch of things on that one. And then that led into another customer car. Then I built Dan's car. So like Dan's was already like 4th evolution of what we're doing. And then like if you physically look at mine and Dan's cars, they look very similar. They have very similar to them and everything. And because we took all the things we liked and we moved them over to my new car, and we wrote down all the things we didn't like. Hey, I don't like how we have to deal with this. And so like on my car now, there's nothing on this car that you can't take off, remove, get to, that you have to remove anything else. Like every single thing in here is accessible without having to take something else apart to get to it.
Yeah.
And with drifting, when we're 5-minute calls, like that's huge. You have to be able to do it now. So build everything so it's accessible, build everything so you don't have to take 3 things apart to get to whatever you want to.
Yeah.
And 2 years of driving this car, 2 years of working on this car, having it at FD events, and learning the ins and outs of how it physically like works as a car. And so I'm taking all of that information and we're putting it into the S15, and you know, just a more refined, honestly, a little simpler as far as the physical car goes, but a little bit more in depth. We're hoping to be a little more in depth with like data and stuff. So you know, ECU Master works with us, so we're going to be utilizing. They've got like wheel temperature sensors and
Oh, wow.
you know, and stuff like that. So we're planning on utilizing a little more data to try and get to where the cars are just that much more consistent when we get to where we need to be, and keeping like I have every single data log of every single run that Dan has done in the last 5 years on my laptop, you know. So we try to like take all this data and put it in and build, you know, like St. Louis, I know that like in St. Louis, we pull 1.6 Gs decelling into turn 2. And we need to put an extra half quart of oil in the car for that turn specifically because the G-forces are so high that it shifts away from the sump. So, you know, we took that data, learned from it, put a little extra oil in the car. Now we don't see any type of oil pressure drop around that turn. And then we just want to take that same mentality to everything else in the car and just make sure that everything goes smoother, everything goes better.
That's incredible.
That's wild.
Yeah.
What do you think, like, any difference in materials used? I mean, there's so much that you guys are constrained with by following the rule book, but are there anything, you know, part wise that you're like, you know what, this is the evolution part too?
Tons of it. So with this car specifically, you know, Dan came out at like just over 3,000 pounds 2 years ago in pro on the 255 and did really, really well on it. And I just kept going back to that. And I really felt like the car was, he knew how to drive that car on that size tire. He knew how it felt. And I feel like part of the struggle that we had this last season was the new tire being a bigger tire. And while it had lots of benefits, it also had downsides to it. So the whole goal with this car is lighter. That's what I said, simplifying it is just, we're building it lighter. I'm trying to basically have this car be somewhere in the range of about 300 pounds lighter than his current car, which when you're talking, it's still the same chassis.
Car, yeah.
Yeah, it's still the same motor. It's still the same suspension. Like, where are you going to find 300 pounds? And so, yeah, we are going to titanium exhaust on this one. So instead of the full stainless steel exhaust, which I mean, I think it's like titanium's like 60% lighter than
Right.
stainless.
Yeah.
I hold the exhaust on this thing now with like one finger, whereas the stainless was a 2-hand job. You know, so stuff like that. The fuel cell, I had a custom fuel cell made. We've always had custom fuel cells, but this one we changed up again. We cut the capacity of the fuel cell down by about 35%. We went from 9 gallons to about 5.5 gallons, which it's just weight. Dan's old car has 2 nitrous bottles in it. We're going to 1 nitrous bottle. It's again just weight. So it's like wherever I can find it in the car. You know, we're starting to make more carbon panels. We're going to be having our own the doors. We're going to make our own doors for this thing. So like steel doors, even gutted steel doors are still 15 pounds a side. You know, you can get them down to 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds, you know? So like just that constant evolution, like you kind of like you're asking, yes, new materials and all in body panels and exhausts and in fuel cell sizing and, you know, just in everything. We're simplifying things in the engine bay. You know, he used to have 12 injectors. We ran 1000s and 1700s on his car. And then we realized, hey, if we drop the weight of the car, make it simpler, make it easier to work on, you don't need as much power. We can go back to just running a single set of 17s. So now the fuel system's simpler. So it's just this, what is that like,
keep it simple, stupid kind of thing.
Yeah. So to finish first you must finish, that kind of mentality. And so yeah, we want to make sure that the car is not what's keeping us from the finish line. And, you know, we have a really good track record of having working, dependable cars. It's very rare at an FD round that we're not actively out driving because something broke or something like that. I think we've had like 2 mechanicals in the last 2 years at FD. So it's not that that's necessarily a problem, but if I can pull the weight out of it, then I can take the stress off of it, and I can down the physical power, and that downs the stress, and the maintenance gets lower. And it's just easier on the car. It's easier on me maintaining it. It's just overall, in my opinion, I think it's a better recipe. So
yeah. You said 2 things that keep sticking with me, and maybe this is for more of a consumer feel, right? I know you guys are running a race program. I know that you are going to do whatever you have to do to be as competitive as possible. But
of course,
when I hear things like titanium, carbon fiber, and I know how much you guys and these cars, maybe arguably any form of motorsport, this is probably one of the ones where the cars take the most amount of abuse, at least from the exterior panel portion. Is there any concern that using these materials as advantageous as they are, that the cost to have spares and do this stuff just goes up too much, or is the end goal still put it kind of into the realm of reasonable?
I think that is I'm going to say a loaded question. I don't know if that's the right word, but I feel like a loaded question because I feel like we've developed skill sets. We've developed the skill sets now to where, like the titanium, like I do the welding,
right.
So like,
right.
yes, there's material cost, but I'm not buying a $4,000 exhaust from AMS to put. The carbon, yes, there's carbon costs, but I'm not buying a $1,500 Cybon hood. I'm putting $200 worth of carbon into a mold that we've created,
right,
so that we create our own parts. And so yes, there is some expense to it, but I feel like, honestly, in our case, the expense is the time that we have to put into it, not really the materials. Because if I can put $250 in materials and make a set of carbon doors, obviously after mold and all that stuff, but like repeatability down the line, $250 in 4.5 hours, 5 hours of my time to make a carbon door. Well, realistically, go find a set of S15 stock doors for me and tell me how much those are at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
of course.
It's kind of one of those, like, yeah, okay, but would you rather spend that money and have meh, or spend that money and maybe a little bit of time and have something super dope? And I think that's kind of, we've decided we want these things, and so we've developed the skill sets to be able to create these things for ourselves, so we don't have to rely on anybody, and we don't have to pay somebody to do it for us.
I think that's one of my, from a non-performance and kind of related aspect, I think one of my favorite things about M-Spec and your team, and specifically you, Kasey, because you're so behind it, is it's that we're going to make everything. We're going to do everything we can in-house to simplify and also make a product that we know is 100% on point. But also, we'll do whatever we have to do, and we'll learn whatever skill set we need to learn to be able to keep the control in-house. And I think it's an interesting point, because we're in a sport, in an industry where, I'm not shooting, this is not directed at any other teams or I mean, this is just in the nature of what it is. But on the whole, I would make the argument that there's so many people that have just gotten into a bolt-on society to the point where they're going to buy off the shelf, they're going to put it on their cars, they're not going to go that extra length. And I think that there's a great deal of capability that the sport and the industry loses when people kind of stop fabricating and kind of making what they need,
Yeah, I think that some of the mentality towards that is that these cars, they, in a sense, need to be disposable. Like, it sucks, but like, Jonathan Hurst built a brand new BMW, friggin' goes to Long Beach,
right,
3 hours of practice and gets put into the wall. Like, to a point, they're kind of disposable. And so, like, I get the mentality of, I'm just gonna pick on Robert Thorne and Josh Love because they're my friends and it's easy.
Let's do it.
But they have E46 BMWs with LSs and YSFAB on them. You know what I mean?
You.
Like,
I get it. Yeah.
They're like, let me buy. I'll buy this LS, bop, and I'll buy this YSFAB, bop, and I'll buy this Big Duck Club, over fenders, and bop, and I'll put my wrap on it, and I'll put whatever wheels my sponsor wants me to put on it, and that's And while that functions and it does the job of drifting, and even at this top tier level, like these companies have done a good enough job that like WiseFab, you can bolt it on with the settings out of the box and they drive, right? Like that's great. But I feel like when you walk through the pits, I feel like our cars, like they speak differently. Like you can kind of look at them and tell that they're different than everybody else's cars. Like they're not just this kind of bolted together thing. They have so much like art in them. I mean, at least when I look at them, I see that, because I put so much time into these things that, to me, like I don't know, they live in my head in a place that like is not a bolt-on place. Like you can't create it that way. And so I don't know, I think that there's a place for it, but also I love getting in here and art and making something that, again, like I said, it lives in my head. So like I've got this image in my head that I've decided I'm building that, and I get to come in here and whether it's a day or 2 days or 3 days or a week or whatever it is that I'm working on that specific thing, at the end I step back and I go, oh shit, I made that. Look at that.
Yeah.
That's that I had in my head. That is my head, and now it exists. And that's where this thing's getting to is, I can see this thing becoming a car.
I listen. There's as corny as it sounds, there's nobody that understands that is better than me. Only because like I love building cars and fabricating them so much. Like it's really all I really ever want to do all day long. So it's like when I get the time to go in the garage and do these things or help a friend out or whatever, it is important to me that like it looks the best. And I've scrapped plenty of stuff. So not on your level. That's not what I'm not comparing. I'm just saying like there is that level of satisfaction that goes into like if I'm going to make something, like I want to make it and I want it to be exactly how I want it. You know what I mean?
No, I totally get it. I literally like I'll lay down at night and I'll like have what I think I'm going to do the next day, and I'll sit there with myself and tell myself the pros and the cons, and maybe if we change this or that, and so like by the time I actually get in here to work, I've thought about this thing for more hours than it's going to actually take to create it, and have that specific thing that I want to make. And like you said, it does. There's joy, like we were talking the titanium exhaust I did on this car. Like there's genuine joy in welding that for me. Like I've never ever messed with titanium before, and there was this like inner part of me that was like, you can do it, and then there's this other part of me that's like, you're gonna burn $1,000 whatever, to sit down and do it. And like like of course I did my reading, I went online, what do people say about welding it? Okay, what do people that have welded stainless have to say, or welded aluminum have to say? Like where are people that are coming from where I'm coming from, what did they have to say about it? And kind of got an idea what I should expect. And then when I got into it, it wasn't so foreign that I couldn't do it, and I built something that I'm proud of, and if he destroys it, I'll be sad, but I'll make him another one.
Right.
Like I'd rather make me one. Like I want to put one on my car now, but like there's just genuine joy when you get to bring something to life, like when I can't, when this thing fires up and I get to hear 2J through titanium for the first time, like, I've heard like Mike Power's car, like titanium, but that's not my car. That's not our car. So like hearing this car in this shop fire up with titanium exhaust is going to be one of those like, yes, like everybody's going to go home on their face that day.
Yeah. So what big projects where's the status update? So before we even get there, when do all right, this is an S15 chassis, this is an S14 chassis.
15. It's a spec R.
Okay. So what kind of condition is it? So here, I guess, with all the inflated pricing that we see that's out there for all these different JDM cars that I can't get, by the way, if anybody has any for sale, you can go ahead and just throw it down there in the comment and we'll reach out to you. But like, how do you decide to maybe go after one of these cars? Is it a car that's wrecked? Is it a car that has damage? You're cutting something up. How do we get this?
Okay, so Dan actually bought this car, I want to say 6 years ago now.
Of course he did.
Smart man.
Through somebody in Florida, through our wonderful state of Florida that does that for us.
Yes.
And he drove in Denver for 5 years, and he had a good time with it. He enjoyed it. And then I don't know if you remember, but the state of Florida got basically sued by the U.S. government, and they put out a list of 400 cars
No,
that the
not that.
basically, and they said, "Hey guys, you can either give us the titles and the cars, like sign a thing that says cars will never be driven on,
Public
U.S.
roadways.
track only vehicles, or we can come pick the car up." And so the car's a race car.
Well, that was a depressing story. I really thought we were going somewhere different. Anyhow.
Fairness, it's not, because Dan wanted me to chop it up and turn it into a race car when I built his first one. Okay, which means it would be a total S15 right now. So
Yes.
it is still a good, straight, no rust, awesome S15, and I'm hoping that we get more than 5 years out of it, because Dan's skills have grown, and hopefully we're not in as many serious crashes.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously he's fine from everything, but you know what I mean. Car damages, and we get to have this longer than 5 years. So
Nice.
there's some light in that. It could be a completely destroyed car that I, agreed to cut up 5 years ago, and now we'd just be building him a 14. So
Yeah.
When did you start this surgical operation to start building the car?
Okay, so I stripped the car down to basically like a rolling shell, probably like a year ago, and then it just sat because the season kind of took over and everything. But as far as physically like what we're doing here, I started like cutting, grinding, whatever you want to call it, right before SEMA. So basically the end of October. So you got SEMA going on. We did SEMA, we did Fuel Fest, and we did PRI. And then we also had a fun weekend out at Texas. So like I'm like just over a month and a half in actual work time in the chassis.
Mm-hmm.
If that helps, you
Yeah.
know, but yeah. So like 2.5 months ago I started, but then a month of other things. And then obviously we've got other projects too. So, they're getting time and stuff, but I've got, a month and a half time I've been at the shop that I've been working on it while also sharing with some other projects.
What do your days look like? Like, do you show up at 10 because I'm there to 3 a.m.? Or do you only put in 8 hours a day? I mean, like, what does it look like?
So I would say most days we're here around 10. And I that's kind of just been my work schedule. When we lived in Denver, the traffic was so bad that I refused to go in like normal hours. And so I would get up when everybody else was already at work, and then I could drive, and then, I'd work until 11 o'clock at night and everybody else is off the road. So it's just that. So that's kind of like just become my schedule over the last like decade, because of that. And so typically we show up here at like 10. And then I would say if we're like going home early's 9 o'clock.
Right.
If we're staying late, that's 1 a.m., 2 a.m., kind of that. But yeah, I would say 12-hour days, like typical. And, usually I'd say 12 to 14 is probably like a typical day, and then go home and eat, and play little video games to de-stress, maybe drive the sim a little. And, my wife's awesome, so there's food when I get there, and, chill a little bit, take a shower, go to bed, do it again.
Wow. It's crazy. Like, and when do you think you'll have this car complete enough to do a test?
So the biggest thing that I'm going to be waiting on this car is paint. Because that's the one thing we don't do. I don't really have a big desire to get into that, the chemicals and the health risks. I don't want to deal with it. So, plus also it sounds like a nightmare if you screw up. Like it's such a big canvas that if you like screw up your mixing ratios or what, I don't even know enough to know what you could screw up, but I know you could. And so that to me is one of those, like, that's not something I need to learn to do for myself, because it's like, again, we're painting this car first, that car went 5 years, same paint. So it's like, it's not something I'm doing every off season or, that kind of thing. So besides paint, that's the one thing I'm unsure about. Realistically, I'm planning for the car to be done at the end of February, beginning of March.
Nice.
Yeah. So you're in the home stretch-ish, sort of.
On something like that, and I'm, like, we're doing all the wiring, and like luckily, again, same thing, ECU Masters have all their electronics in there. The thing is, my car's already wired up on all their stuff, so like I have all my wiring diagrams, same motor, same that kind of thing. So I have all my wiring already figured out. So I've got a couple of small updates that I've already made on paper. then I'll basically wire his car up, and then I take all of my programming out of my car, program it into his. All his outputs are the same, and so like what would have taken me, a month and a half to wire and program and set up is now a 2-week deal.
You guys aren't obligated to use Link.
So I have to use Link's ECU because of PROSPEC.
Yep.
Everything else in the car is ECU Masters. So
Okay.
my PDMs, my battery kill, my digital dash, my keypads, like my GPS, like all of that is master. And then the ECU itself is physically a Link ECU. Dan's car, since he's in Pro, it's no limitation, so it will be top to bottom. What their new Pro 16 came out, I think like right at a year ago now. So we'll be running that ECU in this car, and then realistically, I be Pro this following season. Obviously, not this season, but the following season, I would like to move up to Pro. And in which case I'll be swapping the ECU over to ECU Master products as well. So little things, but like that's so simple. Like all the main programming's still there, and I just go in and like change a CAN bus, like CAN bus allocation, so that it sees the ECU Master's CAN bus information and has the definitions for it versus the Link, and the naming, all that kind of stuff can stay the same. So I literally just kind of change one file in there, and then everything works again. So it's a relatively simple thing.
That's amazing. It's so fun how far things have come into a plug and play nature with some of that stuff. Like I could think about trying to do some of the AEM stuff, like even way back in the day when it was like the first gen AM and stuff, and like there were some sensors that were there plug and play, but there was so much that you had to like figure out.
Yeah. Everything for build your own scalers and everything to get sensors to work right. Stuff. 110. No, and it is getting better. Like ECU Masters Dash, when you plug that thing in, you connect your power, your ground, your two CAN bus wires, and then you tell it what ECU should be listening for, which is like literally like a drop down file. You click it and you say, Motec or Link or ECU Master or whatever. You tell it what it should be listening for, and you tell it what like phone number, what CAN ID it should be on. Go to your ECU and you tell it, hey, send out, this you're on this phone number, and bam, as long as your wiring's good and stuff, like it literally is that simple to get this stuff to communicate nowadays. They've done so much work in the background. Now, obviously, like all the more complicated stuff, like we have a lot of like voltage strategy in our car. We have a lot of nitrous strategy in our car. Those things, like those take time to sit down and develop and go out and test them, and something doesn't work exactly how but it's all like it's not like I'm not typing in like ones and zeros really, like I'm more like writing like if, ands, or thens, like conditionals, like that kind of thing, and you build that in the background, and the same thing, you kind of like feed things CAN bus information to make its decisions on and off of, which is technically populated. You just have to write the formula for it to know what to do, and that takes a little bit of time, but the physically getting stuff to communicate and like just general work is so simple nowadays. It's awesome.
Yeah. When you start, and I know this question is a little bit more personal to kind of everybody's build style, but like I know for people that build cars, especially when you're building something toward a deadline, there's always going to be, everybody already has their individual way that they kind of track their time and try to figure out, like, am I on schedule? Am I moving fast enough? Do I have everything done? Some people put punch lists together and they can tell by the list dwindling. Some people, just have this thing about they know in their head exactly what projects they need to conquer. And when they conquer this project and this project and this project, like they're crossing like almost modules off, if you will. How do you judge like how you're coming in as far as time to make sure that you don't get down to the end and you're like, crap, we're not there?
I would say with this project, it's actually kind of been the easiest it's ever been. I know, thanks to Facebook, Instagram, photos, all that kind of stuff. I know exactly when I started mine. I started mine December 12th, so I started this build a month and a half before I started my build. 2 years previously, effectively. But I literally will kind of they're so similar that I'll go into my photos and like pull up, oh, what day, like I can see, oh, I finished the firewall here. What day was this? All right. So that's 2 months in. Oh, well, I finished the firewall here a month in, ahead of schedule, like that,
Nice.
that kind of is like how I have been going about this. Literally, like I've been telling myself, look, you're a month and a half ahead because you started a month and a half early. Like, oh, you gained another week of time because you got this, and this done. When last time it took you 3 weeks to do it, this time it only took you 2 weeks to do it. So like, I'm kind of myself along that. I've also got a I don't know, that's my right there. That's my
Punch
my
list.
board. Yeah. So I've got a bunch of stuff on my marker board. And I use that mostly for like ordering. So like I'll put, hey, I'm working on the car. Shit, need one of those. Put on the list. And so I've got my kind of order list over there. And like even if I've ordered it, like it's still on there. Like if it hasn't shown up, if I physically don't have it, it's still on that list. And it says like, like fuel system, emailed, emailed sponsor, like should be here, date, whatever. And so like I kind of use that for that. And then like on the physical car, again, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but on the physical car up here.
Yeah, look at that.
Yep.
Yeah. So I got my list up there, and that doesn't go anywhere. I can't lose it. And I am a little OCD. I'll kind of like work through and get whatever I can, done. I put little stars next to things that I don't have to buy materials for because I already have it, or like things that I can do right now. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to buy anything. I can finish this task from start to finish right now. And so I put stars next to all those, and that's kind of like my attack that, but at the same time look at some of these other things and let's get things in the pipeline so that they are here when I'm done with this task. And I'll make my way through that and mark a bunch of lines through things, and then it'll get to where it's half of it's marked through, and I'll go over to the side and I'll start rewriting the list of what's still there and erase everything else, and then kind of look at the car and decide, oh well, I can be a little more specific. This said finish the exhaust. Well, now I can write wastegates on there, or this said mount the hood in the trunk. Well, this can say make specific types of brackets or whatever. I can break it down a little bit more once I've gotten through big huge chunks, and that kind of allows me to again see progress there. So I probably do it in like 4 or 5 different ways is how I measure progress. And just having so many other car builds in the past to kind of like lean on and look at and kind of have that sense of flow and feel of how it should move and that kind of stuff. I probably do it like 4 or 5 different ways to like justify things in my head. Who knows if they're real or not, but it works. So
yeah. What's the thing when you're building an entire car like this? What are the things that the part that you look forward to the most, and what's the parts of the build that you look forward to the least? Like, in other words, everybody's got that thing that they're like, some people it's wiring. Crap, I got to wire. Other people it's like, no, like I don't want to be. I hate welding, the cage up because I end up on my back with a damn pedal taped to my foot. Or like what are those things for you?
I would say like the thing that I probably like the least. I hate being covered in metal shavings. Like yep. I hate it. Like I go home and my wife's like, you got metal here and you got metal here. And, I'm like, sorry. All right. I'll go get out of the clothes, that kind of things. Like I don't enjoy that. But I love fabricating. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird, but, the worst part's probably like the sound deadening removal side of things. Like we had the car sandblasted, but you still get like caulking in between seams that you got to like physically like lift seams up so you can wire wheel under them. Otherwise, when you weld it, it's just going to splatter and turn to shit. So removing the sound deadening is probably one of my least favorite things. Yeah. The rest of it, honestly, I genuinely enjoy it. I do like when I get to the wiring stage because it's like the first time during all of this that I get to like sit at a table and like just kind of sit down. Yeah. I'll have my laptop right here, and maybe it's like, I've got 2 laptops. One's got like my design side of it, and then the other one I'm like, my MacBook has like all my design side of it, and then my Windows laptop has got, like I'm looking up parts or connectors or whatever it may be. So I'll have a little movie playing on the Windows computer while I'm, going on the design side over here, and I'm just sitting at the table, and I get a little like week and a half break of just sitting and wiring and not up down under the car, lift yourself, burn yourself, that kind of stuff. And so I enjoy the wiring side of it, and I get to I get to like, again, same thing, the evolution. I get to look at my car and go like, oh, I didn't like how I routed that. So I get to, kind of change things a little bit. And it's finding that aesthetic inside of it at the same time that it's got to be functional. Like I genuinely enjoy that part of it for sure. But, I don't think I've gotten more joy out of welding, like out of doing anything than welding that titanium exhaust. Like it's such a new skill. Like I got to check box a new skill, and then it also came out dope. Like, it came out dope. So like I genuinely, I don't think I could be more, I don't think I could be more excited about anything than that this second. So
yeah.
And I got new material, like I got new stuff to play with. I got Purge cups,
I know.
And I got
new tools. That's like
a big old 16 size cup, a ceramic, Furic cup to play with, and a dual regulator for the for the tank and stuff like that. That's cool. I'm super excited. It makes me want to build one for my car. I know I have is, but I'm like ready to put more work on my table just so I can do it again.
So here's a little thing. I don't know if I'm sure you bought the entire kit of the Taycan or whatever, Purge plugs or whatever. But if you didn't, I will tell you, not that they're exactly the same. They're not. But what I did was, if you go onto Amazon and you look for silicone like powder coating plug things,
okay,
they're pretty cheap. They come in a whole bunch of different sizes, and they're pretty thick silicone the same way. And I bought a bunch of those, and I basically just took a drill and I drilled, a hose. And I just bought for my dual regulator. I just bought one of those. I put a regular hose on it, and I put in one of those metal barb fittings, so I can just slip it in. And
that's sick.
Yeah, I mean, it's the poor man's like thing. I think they probably melt a little easier.
Foil's the poor man's thing, buddy.
No, I have plenty of tinfoil. I think tinfoil. What's funny? Like you buy a lot of this stuff, and then you end up going, the hell with this, and you're using tinfoil.
Worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
So
I feel that. But you'll think this is kind of trick, but this is on my regulator right now. I bought the quick disconnects.
Yeah.
So my Purge, and then it blocks it off. It doesn't leak out or anything like that, So like little shit like that to me was kind of cool, because you got these lines running all over, and I don't need to purge something, so and just quick disconnect and roll it up and put it away, and so I'm sure that a standard rubber line would have worked for that,
That's not the point.
Yeah, that's not the point. So, in all fairness, I got one of the trailing cups for my TIG torch, and I just have like a standard silicone line going to it. Like it's nothing fancy. It's just literally a push on a barb silicone hose straight off the regulator, and it works fine. I don't need the quick disconnect fittings. It's cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're talking to the wrong guy. I'm the guy that will buy the trick stuff just because it makes me smile, not because like I don't know.
Buddy, I have 3 welders. I do not need 3 welders. Yeah. I'm one person. I can't weld with all 3 welders, but I have 3.
You have to, because
Like, I don't know. There's something that's never been more rewarding. I mean, listen, for people that work on cars or for people that are really, like, into this stuff, like, there's nothing more rewarding than finding the tool that you don't need, but you could possibly need once, and it will fit perfectly in the one drawer you know where it's going.
Right? No.
Yeah.
I have my small box, and my small box rolls around the shop, and it's got my normal everyday I use this stuff constantly tools in it, and then I have my big box, and it's in the corner, and it's just nicely packed with a bunch of specialty stuff that gets pulled out once a year, once every 2 years. You know, but it's there and it fits great, and I like having it. So, you know, I got a fog machine. I don't know the last time, or it's like a smoke machine tester. I don't remember the last time I used it.
Oh, right, because we do a lot of emissions work. But like, the Boostly, I guess you can use for that kind of stuff. But you know,
not often. Everything's like, you know, like Van Jan style clamps and stuff like that. Like, just put a new O-ring. Don't even test it. Just put a new O-ring on and go back to what you were doing. You know,
it's okay, because I don't really work on a ton. Like, I don't do a lot of repair stuff, and I certainly don't do a lot of direct injected cars. But for some reason, the other night I bought myself a kit to be able to put the new O-rings on. On the direct injectors. You know, they have that like kit. I just was like, oh well, I probably need one, because what if, you know? Yeah, that's about right.
Nobody's. You're good.
Yeah, I'm pretty much. Well, man, I don't think we want to hold you up too much more because you're actually like doing something, and
Debatable.
well, it won't be in just a few months. But yeah, like let's. I can't wait to see the update. I can't wait to see the car in person too, because I know that when you guys craft some stuff, it's legit, really good stuff to look at.
Sick. Well, I've been, just for anybody that cares about the build, I have been posting stories on my Instagram. I'm not actually posting like reels or anything like that of it. I'm just doing it in stories. And I have been slacking on it, but I've got like a, like, I don't know, you can have like a story link on your actual page.
Yep.
After stories go up, I'm putting all of them into a build page thing. So you can go in there and watch all of them from start to finish. I need to update that. It's a little behind right now, but that's where the build updates are going for this. You won't find them. They're not anywhere else. I don't feel like making reels and all that stuff. I just want to give you quick updates and say, here's what I did today. This is how it works. This is what's going to happen later. Check it out. Real simple. I don't.
Yeah.
Story. Yeah. My story is where you can find it if you care. If you don't, my story's still where you can find it. So.
And we'll put all your information down in the description and all that good stuff. But man, it's always a pleasure getting to speak to you. And I just wish I had more time because I want to hang out at the shop all day long and weld things for no reason.
Oklahoma City Airport is 10 minutes that way. It's 10 minutes that way, dude.
I know.
Let me know. You can come hang. Weld. I got stuff you can weld. You want to build the tie exhaust for my car?
Listen, I'll give it a shot. I mean, it'll be a droopy golden mess, but I'll give it a shot.
Great. Come.
All right, sounds good. Kasey, thanks so much, and we look forward to seeing that car.
Absolutely. Oh, and I'm also driving in Super Drift this year.
Oh, so yeah?
Don't normally let PROSPEC guys into it, but I got approval.
That's
so me
sick.
and Dan will both be driving Super Drift, so I'll be out at streets with my car, which is like it's 90% of why I want to go to Pro is to drive Long Beach. So to get to do it in Super Drift and PROSPEC is super, super sick. So like stoked for that. I'm like, not that has anything to do with anything. I'm just excited about it. So.
Listen, I think that's awesome. I mean, not only is it awesome just because it's a cool event, but I think that the other piece of it is that there's so many rookies when they go to Pro that show up to Long Beach and have never actually had any experience on the track.
Yep. And I've been like grinding out laps on my sim on it. Like I have a pretty good idea, and it's surprising how much that actually like translates when you get to a place and your visuals are like think they should be and stuff. So I feel good. I like driving it on the sim, and I really enjoyed watching Dan drive it and like having an actual grasp for the size of it and walking it and all those kinds of things. So like I have high hopes, but I also know it's not a very forgiving place. So like I'm not going in there stupid, but like super excited to drive it. So yeah, and then just to get to take that to Pro, and evolve it, because then we'll have 2 cars worth of data for Long Beach that we get to again take in and dissect and figure out how we can actually apply it to the cars in ways that are going to benefit us in the future, and we'll get both cars worth of information. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, I get it. I've been trying to get my drift game up a little bit on my sim, and I will tell you that I tried Long Beach once and I found the wall rather quickly.
Yeah, it's very easy to find.
It sneaks up on you a little bit.
Yeah. We'll have to sim together sometime.
Yeah, definitely. I suck, so don't have high expectations. But aside from that, yeah. So, all right, we'll let you get back to work. Kasey, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. We will catch up with you, man.
Love talking to you guys. You have a good one.
Tell Dan to say hello.
Will do. Later, guys.